Isang makagham na umaga po sa ating lahat. To our partners from the academic and research community, our collaborators from government and the industry, and our colleagues from the Department of Science and Technology, once again, thank you for joining us today and welcome to ASTICON 2026. Thank you. Now, last year, I stood on the same stage, pero ibang venue, and talked about what the DOST-ASTI technologies could do for the country across disaster resilience, agriculture, digital transformation, and smart cities. It was a clear vision of what the Philippines is already working towards when science and technology work. Now, today, I go further. I want to talk not just about what our technologies can do, but about who they are for. Now, think of a barangay health worker in a remote municipality, trained and willing, but seeing patients without enough information to act with confidence, or a student in a coastal community who wants to learn, but whose school has no reliable internet, or whose house has no stable electricity, or a local disaster risk officer who receives rainfall alerts but has no way to integrate that data quickly enough to order evacuations before it is too late. These are real people. They represent millions of Filipinos who are capable, motivated, and deserving, but are held back not by lack of ambition, but by lack of access. That is why at DOST-ASTI, we are no longer just a technology incubator, but also, more importantly, an equity enabler. The measures of our success is not merely how advanced our systems are, but how many Filipinos, especially those who have been overlooked, are better off because of them. So let me show you what this looks like. Across the Philippines, local government units are expected to make high-stake decisions about people's lives during typhoons, disease outbreaks, even on land use. But without information systems to support those decisions, data exists, but is fragmented across agencies, systems, and formats that do not talk to each other. So that's the reality. That is what the GATES program is designed to change. By harmonizing geospatial data from across the DOST agencies into a single AI-driven analytics platform, GATES gives decision makers a unified real-time picture of risk that they can act on. The same gap exists beyond government. There are Filipinos with genuine ideas, inventors and entrepreneurs who do not access government S&T support simply because they do not know it exists, or simply because they don't know how to navigate it. So Wanna Know is our answer. An AI chatbot that makes DOST resources and expertise searchable, conversational, and accessible to anyone with an idea worth building. Filipino women in underserved communities getting screened for cervical cancer depends entirely, hi doc, on whether a specialist is nearby. Survey is building the Philippine Cervical Image Bank that puts AI-assisted colposcopes into the hands of midwives and health workers to increase screen rates. This means we can catch cervical cancer well before it becomes life-threatening. But smarter systems and better tools will not matter if people cannot power their schools and homes or access the basic infrastructure that makes participation in modern life possible. In our archipelago, this is still the reality for too many simply because of geography. RAIN Technologies is working to closing that gap between Filipino students and the education they deserve. Now, also in the Visayas, RAIN is bringing connectivity and digital learning tools to more students who have never had reliable access before. Geography no longer determines a child's options because digital learning is access to education, livelihood, and opportunity. The same drives grid patch in the Caraga region. Power outages in the regions are not just inconveniences. They shut down health facilities, darken classrooms, and stop communities from recovering after disasters. Through this project Grid Patch, we are working with local electric cooperatives to introduce SCADA-based smart grid technologies to make power restoration faster and more reliable, so that when the lights go out, they come back on sooner. For communities that cannot afford for them to stay off, Rain and Grid Patch tell similar stories. That benefit of technology should not stop at the boundary of what is easy to reach. And last but not the least, we build to protect. When crisis hits, the people who suffer most are always the ones with the least margin to absorb failure, the last to receive warnings, the last to be reached, and the last to recover. Through AI for RP, we are developing AI-enhanced weather forecasting that generates faster, higher resolution predictions when a typhoon approaches. For communities that have always been first to bear the damage, more lead time is not a convenience. Now, through Childmind and Charity under the Ayuhan program, we are building AI-assisted clinical decision support systems that help health workers detect neurodivergence and tuberculosis in Filipino children earlier. Children who go undiagnosed longest are never the ones with the most access. Ayuhan is designed to change that, to make sure that a child's chance of getting the right care does not depend on where they were born. And finally, through Service Tier, we are developing an intelligent traffic system that can clear a faster path for emergency vehicles, because the person waiting for that help deserves a system that responds as urgently as they need, regardless of where they live. Now, these technologies form a layer of protection to ensure that when a crisis comes, no community is left to face it without the tools they need. Everything we are building at DOST-ASTI is ultimately for the people I described at the start of this talk and the communities behind them. We build systems that inform, infrastructure that connects, and technologies that protect. Protection, access, and opportunity should not depend on circumstance. They are something every Filipino deserves equally. And of course, this work does not belong to DOST-ASTI alone. The partnerships we forge today are how these technologies move from pilots to promises kept. It requires all of us working together to shape a future where innovation is inclusive and responsive. Together, let us show up for the Filipino people. Together, let us continue to prepare tomorrow today. And with that, maraming salamat po.